Meeting of the District of Columbia Board of Ethics and Government Accountability to order. I'm Bega Chairperson Norma Hutcheson, and this meeting is being held at the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability at 1030 15th Street Northwest, Suite 700 West, and virtually. Joining me today for this meeting are board members Charles Nottingham, Felice Smith, Darrin Sobin, and Melissa Tucker. Together, the five of us constitute a quorum for this meeting. Since it was first posted, there have been no changes to the agenda, so I asked board members to please take a minute to review the agenda, and then we'll need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll offer the motion that we adopt the agenda for the meeting today.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda for today's meeting. If no one has any comments or suggestions, all in favor, please indicate you're in favor of adopting the agenda by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays, no nays. Hearing none, the board has adopted the agenda for today's meeting. Also before us first are the meeting minutes, the draft meeting minutes from our October 2025 meeting, and we'll need a motion to consider the approval of the meeting minutes from October.
I was absent from this meeting, so I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay.
Move to adopt.
I'll
Or
second
move
the
to
motion.
approve.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the meeting minutes from October 2025. Please indicate your approval by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the board approves the October 2025 meeting minutes. We also have the November 2025 draft meeting minutes, and we'll need a motion to consider approval of these meeting minutes.
Move to approve meeting minutes, November meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the board consider approval of the November 2025 meeting minutes. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, the board approves the November 2025 meeting minutes. The next item on the agenda is the 2026 meeting schedule. We'll need a motion to consider the approval of the 2026 meeting schedule.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the board consider the approval of the 2026 meeting schedule. If no one has any comments or suggestions, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the board approves the 2026 meeting schedule. The next item on the agenda is a report from the Office of Open Government. Director Allen, please proceed.
Thank you and good morning, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I am Niquelle Allen, Director of Open Government. I am pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Open Government. Our mission is to ensure that all persons receive full and complete information concerning the affairs of the District of Columbia government and the actions of its officials. Since the last board meeting, OOG has continued its work to ensure that the District of Columbia government's operations are transparent, open to the public, and promote civic engagement. To that end, OOG has enforced the Open Meetings Act, advised on the Freedom of Information Act's requirements, and provided training on those transparency laws. OOG has proudly served as advocates for an open and transparent government. I'll start my report with Open Meetings Act, or OMA, and Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, advice rendered by the office. Advisory opinions. OMA advisory opinion, Shining Stars Montessori Academy Public Charter School, number OOG-2025-0057. I issued this opinion today on December 4th in response to a complaint regarding a meeting held by the Shining Stars Montessori Academy Public Charter School Board on September 20th. The complaint requested that OOG, quote, clarify if public comment has to be allowed per the OMA, and requested that Shining Stars Montessori Academy Public Charter School Board share the document with the Aspire framework with parents with at least 30 days to review, then hold another meeting with public comment and public access to the full meeting and allow public participation in the meeting the entire time, end quote. I concluded that, one, the delay in being admitted to the virtual meetings was a technical issue and not an OMA violation. The complainant argued that he was not admitted to the meeting timely. Second, revision of the draft agenda, posting the revised agenda within 48 hours or 2 business days prior to the meeting, and not treating the draft agenda as a final agenda are not OMA violations. Third, there was no OMA requirement for a public comment period during this meeting, nor under the Open Meetings Act generally, but public comment in OMA subject meetings should be both consistent and fair. For the DC Public Charter School Board provides for the public to submit both written and audio public comments, as well as the ability to register and to testify at its public hearings regarding matters before it. 5, the OMA does not require that documents provided to or acquired by public body members in advance of a meeting be provided to the public. However, documents shared or considered during an OMA meeting must be included in the meeting minutes as part of the full record. 6, OOG advises that Shining Stars Montessori Academy Public Charter School Board immediately implement a registration option that allows registration and joining of its meetings in or close to real time. And 7, it must add the required governance language to all future draft and final meeting agendas according to the DC municipal regulations. A copy of the complaint and the advisory opinion have been added to Dropbox. Informal advice is next. Since the last board meeting, OOG has responded informally via email, telephone, or teleconference to requests for assistance as follows: 10 requests for Open Meetings Act advice, 13 requests for Freedom of Information Act advice, and 15 requests for technical assistance with open-dc.gov. Meeting monitoring. OOG staff attends public body meetings in person and remotely to ensure compliance with the Open Meetings Act. They also inspect public bodies' websites and OOG's central meeting calendar for public meeting notices and records. OOG's attorneys provide legal advice on OMA compliance and take corrective action if necessary. Since the last board meetings, OOG staff have attended 7 public body meetings and no corrective measures were communicated to the public bodies. Training and outreach. First is meeting with the DC Commission on Arts and Humanities, CAH. On November 6th, OOG held an inter-office meeting with CAH General Counsel David Martinez and Attorney Advisor David St. John at Bega's offices. They described the functions of CAH as a designated state art agency of the District of Columbia. Chief Counsel Louis Neal, Attorney Advisors Joan Lelma, Anthony J. Skirbo, and Brandon Lewis, and Paralegal Specialist Kimberly Brown provided information on DC FOIA, the OMA, and the Office of Open Government's activities. The OOG team provided a tour of our facility after the meeting. Next is the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability Bega Wellness event. On November 13th, attorneys Lelma Lewis and paralegal specialist Brown and IT specialist Kevin Brown attended the Smiles Therapy Workshop, a segment of Bega's wellness event facilitated by Christy Venable, founder and CEO of Smiles Therapy Services, LLC, Washington, D.C. The workshop provided tools for assessing and improvements one's care and cover the following 8 dimensions of wellness: physical, emotional, social, spiritual, intellectual, occupational, environmental, and financial. The attendees were provided the opportunity to determine where development is required in an individual self-care quiz. Open Meetings Act training for local school advisory teams. On November 15th, Attorney Lelma presented Open Meetings Act training to local school advisory teams. The session provided detailed instructions for complying with the OMA, followed by a brief question and answer segment, which covered meeting procedures under the statute. Chief Counsel Neal also attended the training virtually. Open Meetings Act webinar. On November 20th, Attorney Lewis facilitated an OMA webinar for public body members and their support staff. The session covered OOG's functions and an in-depth examination of the Open Meetings Act application to public bodies. OOG staff attended the training. Litigation and legislative update versus litigation, the DC Open Government Coalition versus the District, case number 2023-CAB-007251 in DC Superior Court. I have previously reported on this case, which involves the DC Open Government Coalition's lawsuit against the district seeking an accounting of the backlog of public interest records requests submitted through the FOIA Express Public Access link. On September 12th, the district filed opposition to plaintiff's motion for summary judgment and reply in support of the district's motion of summary judgment. On September 26th, the DC Open Government Coalition filed its reply motion to the district's opposition to summary judgment. A motions hearing was held on December 2nd. The court heard arguments from both parties regarding the pending motions for summary judgment. The court has indicated that it will issue an order from Chambers. Copies of the filings remain in Dropbox, and OOG staff will continue to monitor this case. Legislation is next. Legislative action regarding climate change. As I reported last month, Bill 26-0066, the Youth Advisory Council on Climate Change and Environmental Conservation Establishment Act of 2025, passed the council on final reading. The bill was signed by the mayor on November 10th, 2025, and submitted to Congress on November 17th, 2025, and enacted on November 21st, 2025, as Act A 26-0179, and has been published in the DC Register. The act creates a new public body to provide an organized youth perspective on various issues that impact climate change, subject to the Open Meetings Act, and conducting its business according to Robert's Rules of Order. It calls for informational material provided by the Office of Open Government concerning the duties of Youth Climate Council members. The Act and Committee report are in Dropbox. Legislative action regarding the Freedom of Information Act. The fiscal year 2026 Budget Support Emergency Act of 2025, Bill 26-0340, which included the Freedom of Information Clarification Emergency Amendment Act of 2025, expired on December 2nd. On May 27th, Chairman Mendelson introduced Bill 26-0265, the fiscal year 2026 Budget Support Act of 2025, passing unanimously on first reading by a vote of 10-2 on final reading on July 28th, 2025. It was signed by the mayor on September 4th, receiving Act number A26-0148, and transmitted to Congress on September 10th, 2025. The projected law date is December 17th, 2025. Both bills provide authority for implementing the district's FY26 budget and include Freedom of Information Clarification Emergency Amendment Act of 2025. This emergency amendment of DC FOIA was introduced to clarify the scope of exemptions and created a new exemption for particular data or records that the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council and the District of Columbia Sentencing Commission receive from a court, federal agency, or federally established agency. emergency. Copies of the bill remain in the Dropbox. Last in my report are administrative matters. First is government operations meeting. On December 2nd, I, along with Director Cooks and Chief of Staff Christina Mitchell, met with the Assistant City Administrator, Dr. Christopher Rodriguez, and his staff. As part of the government operations cluster realignment, Bega will submit its proposed budget to Assistant City Administrator Rodriguez, and he will also coordinate Bega matters with the Executive Office of the Mayor going forward. The meeting was an introductory meeting, and Director Cooks discussed coordination with the Executive Office of the Mayor for ethics training. FY 2027 budget formulation. Bega has been working with the Office of the Chief Financial Officer on its budget submission to the Executive Office of the Mayor, which is due on Friday, December 5th, 2025. We will have our meeting with the Office of the City Administrator on December 10th to formally present Bega's budget plan. This concludes the Office of Open Government's December 4th, 2025 report. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Allen. Are there any questions for Director Allen?
Just Director Allen, on the budget request, if I could, is there any big changes from last year in our requests this year? Or
The big change is that the Executive Office of the Mayor has said they're not entertaining any requests for additional funds. So that's the big change. We usually do ask for supplemental things to our budget to make sure our needs are fully met. So it doesn't look like we'll have that opportunity, but that's the main change.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. If there are no other questions, we'll go to the next item on the agenda, and that's a report from the Office of Government Ethics. Director Cooks, please proceed.
Good morning, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I'm Ashley Cooks, the Director of Government Ethics. I'm pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Government Ethics, OGE. First is an update on the status of OGE investigations. The information reported today regarding OGE's cases will not reflect any status changes that may occur because of actions taken by the board during today's meeting. For open investigations by status, we have a grand total of 84 matters. For open undocketed matters, we have a grand total of 10. Pending state investigations by status, we have 33 matters that are closed pending collection, 3 matters stayed pending DC Superior Court case, 3 matters stayed for OIG investigation, 2 matters stayed for U.S. District Court case for a grand total of 41. For regulatory matters by status, we have 48 matters that are closed pending collection, 864 matters that are open for a grand total of 912. Again, we currently have 84 open matters and 8 matters that are stayed. The number of open preliminary and formal investigations includes 11 new matters. The investigative team resolved 4 investigations since the board last met. This total does not reflect the number of complaints that were dismissed for a lack of jurisdiction. The quarterly complaint report for quarter 4 of fiscal year 2025, covering the period from July 1st, 2025 through September 30th, 2025, was published to the Bega website on November 24th. The heat map and press release were published yesterday. Copies are in the Dropbox. Next is an update on training and outreach. First, professional development trainings attended by staff. Human Resources Specialist Megan Stoudemire completed training on understanding the DC budget, job code creation, position management, and FMLA red flags. Chief of Staff Christina Mitchell took training on progressive discipline. General Counsel Asia Stewart Mitchell completed a Practicing Law Institute course entitled Writing for Litigators 2025. For trainings conducted by staff, since the last board meeting, OGE conducted 3 training sessions, the November monthly ethics training, and 2 new employee ethics orientation segments. In November, 70 users entered 98 completed courses on the LMS. 75 district employees completed ethics training using PeopleSoft, and 70 new employees attended new employee orientation and received information on the district's ethics rules in November. For outreach, next week, OGE Supervisor Investigator Ronald Cook, General Counsel Stuart Mitchell, and I will attend the annual conference for the Council on Governmental Ethics Laws, COGL, in Atlanta, Georgia, from December 10th to December 7th through the 10th. On Monday, December 8th, Supervisor Investigator Cook will participate in a panel discussion titled Building the Case 2, Planning, Drafting, and Executing Your Blueprints for a Successful Case, which will cover tools to build a case from the ground up using step-by-step model of the life cycle of an investigation. On Tuesday, December 9th, I will moderate a panel discussion titled Fine-Tuning Enforcement, Alternative Sanctions and Ethics Accountability, and will include panelists Jeremy Ferris, Executive Director of New Mexico State Ethics Commission, Christopher Burton, Assistant Chief of Enforcement, California Fair Political Practices Commission, and Aaron Ambrose, Staff Attorney at the City of Philadelphia Board of Ethics. The discussion will focus on the impacts of monetary and alternative sanctions. Also on Tuesday, I will participate in the plenary session titled Independence Under Fire, How to Protect Ethics Commissions from Political Interference. This session will highlight real-world examples of challenges to ethics commissions' independent decision-making and discuss tested strategies and successful tactics to protect and preserve independent oversight. We look forward to attending COGL and will give a full summary of the conference at the next board meeting. Next is an update on advisory opinions and advice. First is informal advice. OGE's legal staff provided advice for approximately 17 ethics inquiries, which is 17 less than the 34 reported at the November board meeting. This number does not include responses we have provided regarding questions about the FDS e-filing and lobbyist e-filing systems. For formal advisory opinions, OGE has not issued any formal advisory opinions since the board last met. Next is annual best practices report. Pursuant to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.02B, Bega is in the final stages of completing its annual best practices report, which will be transmitted to the mayor and each member of the council by December 31st. The report will highlight the functional achievements of both OOG and OGE from fiscal years 2025 until December of this fiscal year. It would also include recommendations for actions that will strengthen the district's ethics laws and transparency laws, thereby strengthening the district's public integrity. Next is an update on legislation and rulemaking. First is the lobbyist registration and reporting. OGE published a notice of proposed rulemaking for the lobbyist section of Bega's regulations on September 26, 2025. The proposed amendment to Title III DCMR changes the date on which each activity report is due from the 10th to the 15th of January, April, July, and October. Section 5803.2. The 30-day comment period closed on October 26th, and we did not receive any comments. The board voted to publish the final notice of proposed rulemaking at the last meeting. The notice of final rulemaking was published to the DC Register on December 21st, 2025, and the rulemaking is now final. For financial disclosure statement rulemaking and legislation, on September 27, 2024, pursuant to DC Official Code Section 1-1161.0147I, this board designated 47 board and commission members as public financial disclosure statement filers. Shortly after the rulemaking was finalized, OGE became aware that many of the boards had been repealed, or merged with other designated boards. As a result, OGE has drafted a notice of proposed rulemaking, which corrects the list of designated boards and commission members in 3 DCMR Section 5710. The board approved the notice of proposed rulemaking at the last meeting. The notice was published in the Register on November 21st, 2025, and the 30-day comment period closes on December 21st, 2025. We will ask you to consider the notice of final rulemaking for this rulemaking at the January board meeting. On this Tuesday, the DC Council passed B 26 B26-0518 and B26-0519. District of Columbia Boards and Commissions Financial Reporting Emergency and Temporary Amendment Act of 2025. Both legislations halt the applicability date of 3 DCMR Section 5710 to the 47 Board and Commission members that were designated by the board until April 3rd, 2026. With this legislation, the council aims to exempt those board and commission members as filers in the 2026 financial disclosure statement season. According to Chairman Mendelson, B26-0325, Board of Ethics and Government Accountability Authority Clarification Amendment Act of 2025 will be introduced in January, which is legislation that repeals Bega's authority to designate employees and public officials as financial disclosure statement filers. Next is an update on OGE administrative matters. OGE is in the process of filling its vacancies for investigator and supervisory attorney advisor. I'm pleased to announce that we have filled our program support assistant vacancy. Please welcome Tiana Smith. She has several years of program support and customer service experience in the private and public sectors. Next is an update on financial disclosure statement, FDS. Pursuant to DC Official Code Sections 1-1162.24 and 1-1162.25, public officials and certain government employees must file a financial disclosure statement as a means of transparency and to prevent engaging in conduct that violates the Financial Conflicts of Interest statute. Bega is responsible for ensuring that employees and public officials who meet the statutory requirement file their annual financial disclosure statement. The DC Council's fall financial disclosure statements were due on November 15th, 2025. The FDS team has drafted a timeline for the 2026 financial disclosure statement season, and internal preparations for the season will begin in January. Next is an update on lobbying registration and reporting, LRR. Pursuant to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.27A, a person who receives compensation or expends funds in an amount of $250 or more in any 3 consecutive calendar month period for lobbying shall register with the Director of Government Ethics and pay the required registration fee. According to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.30, each registrant shall file a quarterly report concerning the registrant's lobbying activity during the previous quarter. On September 19th, Program Coordinator Stan Kosick opened the e-filing system for the 2025 Quarter 3 reporting. This activity report filing covered July 1st to September 30th, and those reports were due on October 15th. To date, 478 Q3 reports were filed. 5 have been filed since the last board meeting. Enforcement for the first and second quarters is underway. Lastly, the lobbyist team is preparing the timeline for the 2026 lobbying reporting periods. And last is an update on public investigations. 24-0016F and 25-0002F in Trayon White. These are formal investigations based on, number 1, the criminal indictment of Ward 8 council member for allegedly agreeing to receive and accepting bribes, and 2, allegations that he violated the code of conduct by failing to file a full and complete public financial disclosure statement. The board scheduled a hearing in 25-0002F to take place on February 5th, 2026. Thank you. This concludes my report for the December 4th board meeting. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director Cooks. Are there any questions for Director Cooks?
Just one question. Director Cooks, under the, thank you for your comprehensive report, by the way. Under the regulatory matters by status, we show 48 closed pending collection, 864 open, grand total 912. Are those numbers getting bigger? I just hadn't focused on them before, but that seems like a lot of open. Can you give a little explanation of what those are?
Sure. So the regulatory matters are lobbyist matters that have gone before the board. There are also financial disclosure statement matters, folks who have failed to timely file for the 2024 and 2025 financial disclosure statement season. Some of them have been already garnished for the failure to file timely, $300 fine, but they may have not filed their statement yet, or they have been sent to Central Collections Unit and they haven't paid through that manner. So we just have a lot of regulatory matters because, number one, we finished out the season in 2024 with several filers that were untimely, and we did the same in 2025 with several filers that were untimely. So that's the reason that the number is so high.
Thank you. And is there any kind of natural resolution process or time period where you kind of or that number is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger?
No, it should. I expect that it will go down because we just had a round of garnishments by the Office of Pay and Retirement Services. So that means we have to go in, reconcile our documents, our records with theirs, and then go into the system and close some of those matters out. So because we've had a recent round of garnishments, we should be going into the system pretty soon to close some of the open matters out. So the number will decrease soon.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And you said you filled a position with Tiana Smith. Is she
Yes.
here?
She's virtual.
Oh, she's virtual. Oh, that's who TS is. Okay.
But she's there on a.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome. Okay. Next on the agenda are public comments. Members of the public in attendance at this meeting have an opportunity to make a comment at this time. Are there any members of the public who want to make a comment? Seeing that there are no comments from the public, we will proceed with the next item on the agenda, and that's our executive or closed session. This session is to discuss ongoing confidential investigations pursuant to DC Official Code, Section 2-575B14, to consult with an attorney to obtain legal advice and to preserve the attorney-client privilege between an attorney and a public body pursuant to DC Official Code, Section 2-575B4A, to discuss personnel matters, including the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, performance evaluation, compensation, discipline, demotion, removal, or resignation of government appointees, employees, or officials pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B10, to deliberate on a decision in which the Ethics Board will exercise quasi-judicial functions pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B13, and to discuss contract negotiation strategies pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B2. May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the board enter into executive session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Okay, the time is now 10:33, and the board will move to the boardroom for executive session. We will return to this meeting after the conclusion of the executive session to report out any matters decided, finish any other business, and adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Okay, the time is now 11:32 a.m. and we are back on the record. In its executive session, the board approved an amended notice of violation and scheduling order in matter 25-0002-F in Ray Trayvon White. That concludes the meeting of the DC Board of Ethics and Government Accountability for December. The next meeting will be held here at the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability, 1030 15th Street Northwest Suite 700 West, and virtually on January 8th, 2026 at 10 a.m. With that, wish you all a happy and safe holiday season, and we will see you in January. Thank you. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, folks. I wish I could stay for the holiday party, but I